Hey, Shalom, Akim, Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yamashai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Aquath that may listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Raquai, back in here with another quick and Lord's will as always, an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I just wanted to go through a particular moment in history known as the Trail of Tears amongst the northern tribes, right? So, and I'm doing this in response to this so-called holiday that, the Canadian government has established. And yesterday they had a holiday. It was known as Truth and Reconciliation. And for brothers who don't know, as a matter of fact, I'm just going to pull it up here so I can show you what it actually entails. So this is a holiday established in Canada. So it says, each year, September 30th marks the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And it says, the day honors the children who never returned home and survivors of residential schools, as well as their families and communities. It says, public commemoration of the tragic and painful history and ongoing impacts of residential schools is a vital component of the reconciliation process. So the federal statutory holiday was created through legislative amendments made by Parliament. So it apparently, as a matter of fact, I'll just read a little bit more here. It says, Orange T-shirt Day is an indigenous-led grassroots commemorative day intended to raise awareness for the individual, family, and community intergenerational impacts of residential schools and promote the concept of every child matters. So it says the orange t-shirt is a symbol of stripping away of culture, freedom, and self-esteem experienced by the indigenous children over generations, right? So this is kind of an effort to essentially kind of, soften the blow, right? It's this is not an example. Like our people, for example, believe that, this is true recompense, so they give you, for example, a holiday, and or even for you so-called Negroes and not Native Americans, so-called Negroes and West Indians, they think handing out money is your reparations, and this is a very BS form of reparations. As a matter of fact, let me start off with this scripture here, so just bear with me. My mouth is kind of numb, so just bear with me. I'm just getting over a cold as well. Where is it? Okay, this is 2 Thessalonians 1 verse 6. And it says, seeing it is a righteous thing with Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahawashi, to recompense tribulation to them that trouble you. Right? So this is not true reparations. It's a righteous thing with Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahawashi to recompense trouble upon those that, have troubled you, Israelites. Right? Because this is not an example of proper reparations. Our people are still in a destitute state. When you read Isaiah chapter 1, it describes the mental condition of our people, and that mental condition is still playing out today. So specifically, as we're talking about the so-called Native Americans, you northern tribes, Seminoles, you Puerto Ricans, so on and so forth. You've had Esau, one of our main enemies, written in Psalms 83, come into our so-called communities, into our tribes, into our lands, and essentially they put unrighteous decrees upon us. They put hell upon us as a people, right? And there's an after effect, intergenerational so-called trauma. The scriptures describe and says the head is still sick, right? With putrefying sores, just explaining the mental condition of our people today, and that still happens, right? But they do these, these elites, and these the government, they put forth this legislation to kind of essentially soften the blow, right? But this is not real recompense. So in light of today, as a matter of fact, one second, I just wanted to grab a couple points here from this book I have. The book is called Black Indians, and it goes into the tribes from the so-called Negroes and so-called Seminoles and Native Americans mixing amongst each other, right? So what I want to do, as a matter of fact, let me get this first precept I have here to kind of tie things. Just bear with me on this. Okay, this is Jeremiah 49, verse 10, and it says, I have made Esau bare. I have uncovered his secret places. He is not able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. And what is making him bare is, the apostles, the prophets, bringing out essentially the atrocities of this individual, right? The atrocities that these people have done to our people. But our people are still in a messed up state, because when you realize these other nations don't mourn for us. These other nations don't care about us, right? And, Jake would go into the streets, they will march, protest, and, and then you realize your condition as a people is still essentially not being taken care of. As a matter of fact, let me just grab another precept, just bear with me on this, then I'll get the account. And it says, this is Jeremiah 15, verse 5. And it says, who shall have pity on thee, O Jerusalem? And who shall bemoan thee? Who shall go aside to ask how thou doest, right? So these other nations, they don't care about us. No one mourns for us. No one asks to see how our people are doing, and no one these other nations, like you read about in Psalms 83, they don't care about us as a whole, right? So, and they do these little trinket reparations to kind of make it seem like it's all good. But you look at the state of your so-called community. Look at the state of your ghettos. Look at the state of your households. So I'm just gonna read a little bit from this book here. It's quite a good book, I should say. Just bear with me on this. So just going to go into some of the atrocities that these people have done. So this is page 152 in the book Black Indians, and it says, for white citizens, it is in the eastern states, problems presented by Native Americans were solved in a single dramatic stroke by the Indian Removal Act of 1830. It says it provided for the mass deportation of the 5 nations from their huge fertile homelands in the southeast. So when when it talks about the 5 nations, so it's talking about those sub-Native American tribes. So you have the Cherokee, you have the Chickasaw, you have the Choctaw, you have the Seminole, then you have the Creek, right? So further on, it reads, some 60,000 of red and black men and women were eventually deposited on lands in Arkansas and Oklahoma, and that whites considered uninhabitable, right? So they were essentially displaced from their homes. And keep in mind, here it says red and black. We are not red people, and we are not black people, right? These are all bywords that were put on us. get a preset for that. Just bear with me. I think it's 37. Okay, Deuteronomy 28, verse 37. And it says, "And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee." All right, so these are part of the curses that fell upon our people, right? That we would become a byword. Black, Hispanic, red. We're not red. Esau is really the red person. You Native Americans are not red. You are copper-skinned, brown. A lot of you look today, almost damn near, like so-called white people. But if their bloodline is the seed of somebody who goes back to a so-called Gadite or Reubenite or one of the northern tribes or an Israelite, you are still an Israelite, regardless of how you look. It's all based on the seed of your father. Right? So here it says further on, a removal meant more than a change of geography. It says fragile cultures were uprooted by army troops and driven to an alien climate and location. For Cherokees, it was a murderous trail of tears. President Martin Van Buren ordered 7,000 soldiers under General Winfield Scott to move a nation of 14,000. Homes were burnt, livestock, tools, printing presses, and personal possessions seized and destroyed. Cherokee men, women, and children, including 1,600 black Cherokees, were prodded westward in midwinter by federal bayonets. It says about 10,000 Cherokees survived, but President Van Buren assured Congress that their expulsion had the happiest effects. The Cherokees have immigrated without apparent reluctance. It says the Indian territory of 5 nations decimated by their deadly journey faced a wilderness. Clearing was necessary before settlement could survive. Those who had left their dead on the trail across the south to the Mississippi and beyond now had to turn to building new homes. So imagine that, you're essentially you're being pushed out. So think of it this way. What's going on in the land, in the state of Israel today, these is so-called Israelis, what the government there is doing, they're doing the exact same thing that you so-called Native Americans are doing. The difference is who is it also being done to, if you really think about it. Because it shows that, the media would, portray this image that, oh, the so-called Palestinians. I'm not, I'll say this. The media is portraying, a lot of sympathy for the Palestinians. But you realize the same playbook is being done, and the same playbook was being used in this scenario as well, because they took you and they essentially pushed you off of the lands where you were situated, because you were there a lot longer than them, right? So it says here, where was I? Those who had left their dead along the trail across the south to the Mississippi and beyond now had to turn to building new homes. Only a rich cultural heritage and strong families provided a fortitude necessary to sustain nations. It says, on the new lands, Indians faced new assaults. It says, whites seeking to profit from their misery appeared to their camps with products to sell. So essentially now that they're in a destitute state, now they come up and, Esau's an opportunist. So he saw the opportunity to, essentially make money off of you. And this is the same thing that he's doing today. He's just All he does is make money off you Israelites, make money off of your affliction, so to speak. Um, let's get, where's Sirach? Just bear with me. Sirach 19, verse 26, and it says, "There is a wicked man who hangeth down his head sadly, but inwardly he is full of deceit, casting down his countenance and making as if he heard not. Where he is not known, he will do thee a mischief, thou before thou be aware." It says, verse 28, "And if for want of power he be hindered from sinning, yet when he findeth opportunity, he will do evil." Right? So he takes the opportunity. He's looking for opportunities to do evil upon you Israelites. This is why it's so important to know who you are, because once you know who you are, you get an understanding of knowing who your enemies are. Right? Psalms 83. And then when you understand who your enemies are, you understand how your enemy fights. That's why the scriptures say, "Become illuminated, Jacob," to roughly paraphrase. Right? This is part of understanding and knowing who you are, because he's just using the same playbook from before. He's not changing anything. These people are not original. These heathens are not original. It says, further on, it says, "Native Americans become more dependent upon white goods and values. Government agents, Indian agents," it says, "regulated their lives and paved the way for other intruders. Slavery became, even more entrenched." So that even proves and shows that you so-called Native Americans were also enslaved as well, not just Negroes in America. Right? Indian agents sent by Washington openly encouraged slaveholding. Soon, two distinct classes based on slave ownership divided each Indian nation. It says mixed bloods owned slaves and usually had some white ancestry. Though the minority, they felt both of these facts made them superior fit to rule. As a matter of fact, I'll stop right there. I think I went a little too far. But that's kind of the point I really just wanted to hit. Just going into, the atrocities of, and this is just one example. There's plenty of examples all throughout the book, and there was a point I was also reading where a lot of you Native Americans were misclassified as so-called Negroes. Right? Because they were mixing amongst each other, and it was an opportunity for them to try and get the land. So what I want to do, where is it? What Esau was doing as well, he put out a lot of as a matter of fact, let me get the precept. He put a lot of legislation to try and keep you Israelites apart. So it says Isaiah 10:1, and it says, "Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed." Right? So it says, this is very important, because one of the things that Esau did was to put hell upon you. And all these unrighteous decrees, he did it to essentially keep you people apart, keep you Native Americans and you so-called Negroes apart. Because a lot of you found commonality because you realized you had a common enemy in that time, and that still hasn't changed today. But you Israelites need to wake up to knowing that you're Israelites, and then knowing that you have a common enemy. You still have the same enemy today, right? So. Where is it? This is Jeremiah 50, verse 33. And it says, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all them that took them captives held them fast and refused to let them go." Right? So this is the place, America was a place where, you had both the northern and the southern kingdom being oppressed together, right? Because they realize, both of you, tribes from the northern kingdom as well as the southern kingdom, both of you experienced slavery in America, right? And both of you have found a lot of commonalities amongst each other and began to interbreed with one another. You're still the same people, but the point is, America was that place where you were essentially oppressed together, right? So, anyways, I'll leave it there. But I sincerely pray that this lesson was edifying. I thought about it, and this. All these things that Esau does for you Israelites is really just crumbs off the master's table. This is not real riches. This is not real recompense. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity, right? So, this is something that is, and then on top of that, they do these things to make them feel like, superior. They make them feel like, they did something nice for you. But when you really think about the amount of atrocities that just happened to you as a people, they don't care. These other nations don't care, especially Esau, right? So, anyways, before I don't want to ramble on too much, but I sincerely pray that this lesson was edifying. I just like to give our praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashim Shai. Until next time, I say Shalom.